Morning. I'm going to navigate my way here and try not to fall off this platform this morning. So firstly, welcome. Welcome to MPE 2023. Welcome to Berlin. What a fantastic event we've had so far. I hope you'll agree. The last 24 hours have been absolutely brilliant, flawless. Whether it's meeting old friends and new, whether it's going to panel sessions like this, listening to presentations, I think it's been a brilliant day so far, 24 hours. So let me introduce myself and a little bit about what this morning's topic is really focusing on. It's on you, talent in payments. You are the current custodians of the payment sector. You're the future of payments. So I would argue that this may be, one of the most important sessions that you'll be attending during this event, because it's all about you, your career, your team if you are a team leader, your brand, the organization that you work for. So my name is Simon. I'm senior partner with Greenings International. We're an executive search and leadership organization, and we specialize in the payments and fintech sector. Prior to that, I worked for a payment gateway company called CyberSource that was acquired by Visa, so I did some time with Visa. Worked for a fintech and ACI Worldwide doing real-time payments and open banking for a while. And then I became the, I guess you could call it the gamekeeper turned poacher as I moved into the world of exec search, headhunting, and recruitment. So as we've heard about the last couple of days, the boundaries of the payment sector are expanding ever more rapidly, whether that's a merchant turning part of its business into a payment platform, whether that's a vehicle becoming a mobile payments device, whether it's AI moving from fraud and risk to mainstream payments decisioning, whether it's about super apps or central bank digital currencies and their rise, BNPL, marketplaces and how they're changing the way we think about payments, how we think about shopping. All of that activity, all of those endeavors, all of those organizations present a very real challenge to us as a sector. And I'm not talking about innovation and technology and product. I'm not talking about go-to-market strategies or marketing. I'm talking about people talent, the fundamental foundation and pillar of our industry and sector that sometimes doesn't really get talked about enough. But it's the people that are going to execute on those strategies, that make sure that those endeavors are scalable, that you can hit your KPIs and growth targets. And we're going to look at that this morning through three lenses, and I'll get our panel to introduce themselves in a minute. The first lens is you, the wonderful you in this room. You are the current custodians of payments. You'll be the future of payments as well. So it's thinking about your career plan, your career journey, what your aspirations are, and actually taking time to do that, because in our busy worlds and busy jobs, sometimes we don't think so much about us. We're always thinking about our team, about our customers, our clients, our leadership, our investors, and so on. So taking a moment to reflect on that, thinking about team, whether you are a team leader today or have aspirations to be a team leader in the future, thinking about the importance of diversity and balance and the benefits that that can bring to your outcomes, the outcomes for your business. And we were lucky enough to go along to the European Women in Payments meeting this morning, and it was great, very refreshing, very invigorating to listen to what was being said there. And then the last one is organization. So your brand, your shop window, that attracting and retaining talent within your organization, and the role that you personally play, because you are a shop window individually in terms of what you do with yourselves visibly within the sector, how you network, how you create your profile, and you think beyond the borders of yourself, beyond the borders of your team or your company to the sector. And going back to my first point about how the sector is growing and evolving, the important role you personally can play there. So we're going to reflect on those three topics. A couple of other things. So Deloitte published a report a little while ago basically saying in payments and fintech, the ability to attract and retain good talent has become a competitive differentiator. So we need to think about that when we're going to market. So finally, 2 quick points. Firstly, we've got a couple of poll questions that we're going to be weaving in this morning. I'd really encourage you, if you could, to answer those. They're very simple, yes, no. We will have some audience questions as well through about 3/4 of the way through the event. So anyway, thank you for giving us your time this morning. Delighted that you're here. And now we're going to introduce the panel. So maybe we could start with you, Candice.
Sure. Good morning, everybody, and hope you're having a great time at the conference. I'm Candice Pressinger from Elavon Merchant Services, and I'm the Director of Customer Data Security.
I'm Paul Rodgers. I chair an organisation called Vendorcom. We like to bring all of the different key stakeholders around the merchant payments space together at both an individual level, at a business level, and to bring the industry as a whole together. So really important that we think to bring those people into a position where they can be as strong as they possibly can be.
Hi everybody, Louise Garratt-Murch. I am what is known as a reformed merchant. So I've spent the last 12 years in payments working on the merchant side for some amazing corporations, the likes of Virgin Atlantic, EasyJet and the Walt Disney Company. But I am now heading up the relationship management function at Apexx, a payment orchestration company. So super excited to be here to chat with you all about payments.
Yes, I'm Morten Laufer. I work for a company called PCN, Payments and Cards Network, and the name might suggest what we do. We're in healthy competition to Simon, exec search, recruitment. Whenever you need someone, you would call, hopefully us.
Hi, I'm Estelle Brack. I'm a founder of the advisory firm KiraliT, and I'm also executive board member of the EWPN. Who held the breakfast this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, panel, for introducing yourself. So as we talk through these points and the panel reflect, think about this not only in terms of your organization, but also thinking about it for you personally and your career journey. So sort of just bear those 2 things in mind as we're talking through topics. So the first area I wanted to discuss was that of how we think about attracting talent. And that's important for the audience in terms of whether you are a leader, whether you play a significant role within an organization where you are matrixed around talent, or thinking about how you present yourself for your next career opportunity. So when we're talking about attracting talent, and maybe we could start with Louise, if that's all right. And I'm not going to put you on the spot here. I'll give an intro to this. So you've been both merchant and you're now within payments itself. And there's an intersection there between the two, as you touched on. So how do you think about that migration opportunity of talent from a payments part of a retail or merchant into the payments industry and vice versa? Do you think that's something that could work? Have you seen it work? Are you the role model for that?
Oh God, a role model, maybe. I think it's really interesting that the skill set that we have as a broad industry is so diversified and transferable. I've seen people come from the processor side into the merchant community, and that's added tons of value because as a merchant, your payments expertise is so much smaller. It's so much insular. You tend to be a payments manager. If you're lucky, you've got maybe a couple of analysts helping you out, but you're so heavily reliant on the third parties that you work with to help guide you through your strategy and what you're trying to achieve. So having then someone come from that side into a merchant organization that understands that side allows you to challenge your third parties then in a slightly stronger way. Likewise, what I've seen in moving over, I was looking at my career, trying to work out what I wanted to do next and really analysing what I enjoyed most about my roles that I'd had to date. And it was very much the relationship management side of things and that skill set. So by coming across the other side, I am the ambassador for the merchant within our organisation. So I can really champion and it's really small things like a support email address to dear user or dear customer rather than personalization, or just the way that we communicate with our merchants is so specific and understanding them. And what I found is it's been really well received by the merchants that we work with to be able to sit across the table, eye to eye with them and go, I know where you've been, I understand how frustrating this is, I'm really sorry, we're on it, we'll fix it. Or when I was at this organization, we looked at this type of payment processing, maybe that could work for you. So there's definitely applicability in interchanging.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And Paul, in your role as chairman of Vendorcom and other initiatives and endeavours, what's your perspective on this?
Well, I look across the industry, and I've got that kind of privilege of being able to operate with all stakeholders, both on the supply side, payment solution side, and the merchant side. And what I would say is there's actually something for everyone, no matter what your skill sets are. The payments industry, we can find a role, and we should be presenting ourselves to say this is a really vibrant, exciting industry sector. And whether you're in sales or technically orientated or strategically or political affairs or whatever it happens to be that really excites you, or even if you want to, you've taken your career in a particular path and you think, well, actually, we might be able to move and advance and develop a more interesting, diverse career. For organizations here, there's a real opportunity to say, okay, you brought somebody in a sales role, but how are their skills developing? Where could you move them to? Because really, we've got all of that possibility at our fingertips. And as Louise has done, transferring from the merchant side to the solutions provider side and vice versa is, again, a great opportunity. Moving with other influencers within the industry. Like, heaven knows we need payments skill sets within regulators and standards bodies and people like that. So again, the diversity is right there.
Thank you. So I think for me, I don't know how many of you are parents out there, but the litmus test for me around our sector is, do I think payments and fintech would be an exciting place for my kids to go and work when they're old enough? And actually, would they be attracted into it? So it's just something to sort of think about there a little bit. So Morten, as a fellow recruiter, when you talk to your clients and prospects about openings that they have, how do you advise them when you're looking at, maybe you're not presenting yourself's organization in the most attractive way for what is a pretty competitive employee marketplace at the moment?
Yes, so something I see tons is the curse of knowledge, right? So clients would come in and they would be very much consumed by their own product and by their own ecosystem, and by payments is the best, and fintech maybe as a whole, a super interesting industry. And oftentimes, obviously, I get called for people who already bring a skill set, right? But I think the industry as a whole, number one, could profit a lot from being more open to get new people. And I don't need to tell anyone here why payments is exciting, right? Because otherwise, I hope you wouldn't be sitting here. But so number one, if you want to be more open and train people to get into this industry, I think what you need is use cases. You need to show people that payments is everywhere, and how it makes you feel when it doesn't work. And maybe it's even a product that can be more than just, I don't like it when it doesn't work. I also like it all the time when it works. Great example is whenever I go to any city outside of Berlin that accepts my credit card as my ticket for public transport, right? So I think once you can show the use cases in everyday life, then you have a much better chance of showing people the importance of payments as a whole, and not just, let's talk about EMV and all of these like super
those are very important points, though.
Didn't want to discriminate here, but yeah, I think
well done,
keeping the use cases out there and making sure how much it impacts everyday life is something that is often neglected by curse of knowledge, I call them.
Yeah. Thank you. So Candice, Elevon, and you were sharing with me about the program they have initiated to attract early talent in, so coming out of the education system. Could you share a little bit about that? Because I know it's something you're very passionate about.
Yeah, I think I'm generally very passionate about Elevon's people culture in general, but one of the things that they do that I think is particularly great, and it demonstrates our sort of value of people, not just internally in the organisation, but in our overall community. So wherever we operate, we're very engaged in the local communities, and that includes the educational institutions. So we partner with Dublin University, for example, and we go in and we give of our time. We talk about what careers are available. We have an early careers program. We take in summer interns. We have graduate programs, and we're very much about offering the opportunities to the younger generation. But I think something touching on what Morten was saying, I think the way we position it probably needs to be revisited. And I know I was talking with Claire from Hyperion about it's all the sexy things that we actually enable that would be very attractive. And I think there's a perception, and why no one wakes up in the morning thinking, my dream career is in payments, is because we're probably typically thinking about it in terms of the technology, the security, the government, the regulation. And it is the most, and we see from the things here at the event, it's so far reaching, so many different job roles. And as you're talking about, I fell into payments by accident. I was a data protection lawyer, but I was involved in payment security, limitation of scope and liability. And I became involved in it by accident. And then I went from a merchant to the acquirer, and it's an invaluable thing, having been in the merchant environment, being able to create products with the merchant in mind. So I think that we have so many roles, and I think as an industry, we do need to think about how we talk to the next generation in a slightly more exciting way.
Perfect. That's really, really good. Thank you, Candy. So Estelle, through two lenses. So one as leading and championing the European Women in Payments initiative. I do think as an industry, I question why we need that. We shouldn't need that. We shouldn't need that for any diversity group. We should intentionally be having recruitment policies that enable us to bring in the depth and breadth of diversity and balance we know will benefit our organizations, our teams, and so on. But Estelle, through two lenses. So one, your European Women in Payments role, but also where you predominantly do business right now. So you're based in Africa, is that correct? Or you do business in Africa? I think when you and I spoke, you were somewhere down there in the region. But I'm thinking about how do we attract those sort of diverse groups to payments and make this a place where they know that they are respected, that they can develop their careers, that they can have a good career experience. Got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you. I think what is important, what we see also why EWPN or such initiatives are important, as you all mentioned, because the fact that payments are seen as ICT, and we know that they are, for 4 men, we have 1 woman. So there is a question of education. So we have to also to convince women to go in that direction. So we are trying to also help women that are already here in the payments area to feel comfortable, to have a space to share views, and also to be more. We are trying to build also self-confidence and also help women just to go on stage. Many of them that don't. No, I'm not an expert. You are an expert. You have things to share. So this is one thing we do. And from your, so I'm based in France, as you correctly said, most of my activities in Africa. And actually, the problem in Africa, the problem is that people in Africa, developers that are people that are doing studies in Africa are moving to Europe because there is a need in Europe. And it's a great appeal for people, young people from Maghrebian countries, from Tunisia, from Morocco, to go to Europe. And then, so there is a need in Maghrebian countries. So people from Senegal, from Congo, from Cameroon, they go and work for the company in Morocco, for example. So there is a huge... there is a huge connection and linkage between all the communities, so it's very important. So that's one aspect of filling the need in Europe, and the other aspect of diversity as our businesses, products, payments, products, but more globally, are global. Companies are global, are European and global. They also have to integrate or build or know about the different ways of using payments, different diversity of how people interact with money, basically, and to take it into consideration. Just very quickly, I've seen so many startups that have developed payments in solutions for Africa from Europe with a 4G, 5G connection, and not knowing about the real needs of the people and how they behave with money, and then they fail because they don't feel the need actually. So diversity is knowing your market also.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that. So Paul, just a quick question. I don't know whether you wanted to respond to that, but I also want you to touch on, you and I were talking about the fact that we went through this period of, I guess it's referred to as the Great Resignation or Great Reshuffle through lockdown and the sort of pandemic period. And we saw quite a few folks leave the industry and go into other sectors for whatever reasons they had. And so there's been a sense of, has there been a little bit of a drain of talent in our sector? So got some comments on that?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting one. And if folks have decided to leave the sector intentionally, well, look, that's their decision. And it's always a shame to lose that talent and those skill sets. But where businesses have had to make some hard decisions, and we're seeing that actually right across the sector at the moment, where perhaps the hype has got ahead of the ability to deliver some things, and organizations that have invested have unfortunately had to downsize, and we're seeing that right across the board. It is a real shame when we do lose people who would like to stay in the industry, and it's certainly one of the things that we have done in Vendorcom, that where anybody is between jobs and they would like to stay in the sector, we have always said that they can participate and attend and get involved in any of the sessions and so on that we're running for free. They don't need to join as a member at any level. Just keep them in the sector, make sure we have got copies of their resumes, their CVs, and make sure that we're always looking for opportunities. So I hope we won't lose many more from the sector. But to pick up on what Candice was saying, there are just so many opportunities, but in many other sectors, whether it's in advertising or social media or marketing or even banking or general financial services, there's a tagline, there's a totem that's there to say, oh, would you like to, as someone coming out of university, a career in marketing, a career in accounting, a career. We don't say this payments industry is an industry and it's a sector and an ecosystem, and folks outside might go, oh, this is really narrow. Payments, oh, that's tiny. We know it's as diverse as it possibly can be. And so to pick that up, but also to Estelle's point, we in this industry, the merchants who are seeking to attract more customers, the economy as a whole needs to see everyone paying. And so therefore the diversity of payments is so important, because payments follows broadly national or social trends. And if we don't have that diversity of shaping and influence coming in from around the industry, we're actually going to be offering really substandard solutions to the wider marketplace. So we owe it to everyone to make sure the diversity of inputs and suggestions and shaping and so on of the solutions we're getting, whether that's across border or technical skill sets or whatever it is, that diversity needs to be really, really broad.
No, brilliant. Thank you.
Could I just pick up on one thing?
Yes, do. Candice, sorry.
You raised the point that I perhaps wanted to make but didn't quite get there, is that within a payments organization, and I can talk for Elevon, you have all those roles. You have marketing, you have PR, you have finance, you have sales, you have management, you have product development, commercial, you have the whole exciting ecosystem. It is a career, and I don't think people get to see that.
Payments is that vehicle to deliver all of those other things.
Thing that Estelle said is like, people think it's ICT, it's STEM, it's technology, it's, the stuff that I like, but not everyone likes, security and controls, but, there is so much to it. And that's the thing I'm quite passionate about imparting, and maybe when we come to shop window, we can talk more about that.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Louise,
just to close out, I think it is that letting people know what is your career path in payments, right? I think, if we did a straw poll of everyone in this room, to your point, everyone would say, I fell into payments. Nobody kind of went through their education going, oh, you know what? I really want to work in payments. We all discover it and we're hooked because it's fascinating. The people are always amazing. It's always collaborative. Everyone's always friendly and welcoming. I know when I first started, I knew absolutely nothing about payments, complete novice, was in a chargeback role going, okay. So it's through the friendliness and the networking that you do that. But I think you're right, there's not always that clearly defined career path that maybe some of the graduates are looking for.
Well, good. So thank you. We'll hold on to that for a second. So Patricia, if we could get up the first poll question here, or just the folks get into Slido, and it's a yes/no question. So what we're focusing on here is a little bit around the sector and whether you personally see this, the sector as a place where you can thrive, you can develop your career and meet your career aspirations. And that's really important for us to sort of get a gauge of this morning. So thank you very much for that. Just sort of at your leisure, take a look at that. And we'll address some of this in a minute, but I wanted to touch a little bit on the importance of sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what we're seeing in our teams, what we experience day to day in our roles, and that's important in the sense of. So I do some mentoring with Reading University in the UK. I speak to undergraduates and postgraduates, and the number of them that say to me, if a company doesn't have a clear ESG vision and mission, if that's not sort of core through the values of the organization, I just don't want to go work for them. And so we're seeing that with the sort of the Gen Z and soon to be Gen Alphas. I think they're going to have a very strong set of principles that they will apply when they think about what company do I want to go and work for? What leader do I want to go and work for? And this is where you as an audience, you as individuals can really help your team. You can really help your brand. You can really help the sector by having a voice. And quite often, going back to Estelle's point earlier on, it's, I don't really want to stick my head above the parapet, as we say back home, or I don't want to put my views forward. But it's really important that you do through a couple of lenses. One, it helps the industry. It stimulates debate and dialogue. And you can do it in a very collaborative way. It doesn't have to be a harsh statement. But I think it also increases the visibility of you personally as a person in payments. And that's you being the shop window for yourself, for your team, for your organization. So when we think a little bit about diversity and its importance, what are some of the things that the sector can do? I mean, maybe a question, and I'm going to go to Morten with this. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but do you think we as an industry do a good job when it comes to diversity?
No, and generally I don't see that much. So diversity comes at a price, an initial price in hiring, at least from my perspective. And there's basically two options that you have when you decide to hire in a more diverse way. And the one is, I want people who have payment experience, and I want people who do not have payment experience. And if I decide to hire whatever diversity, how I define diversity, and I get my scope out, and I get people from the payment industry, then I might be helping diversity within my company. There is still a finite amount of people in the payment industry that has not been changed. So I think what you see lots of different ways of approaching this, right? And very funny ways as well, because people would not be allowed in Germany to tell me, oh, I need to hire a woman, right? You would not write this, so they would tell me in ways that I should guess now. I guess I know what you mean, right? So there's a lot of insecurity around how to approach it. There's very strict measures. There's companies who just strictly say, no, we have, let's say, 7 men and 3 women on my team, and until this is 50-50, I do not want to see male candidates. There is a multitude of trying, but I think the industry needs to figure out, how do we attract, I will stick to women, and I know diversity is much bigger, but the example, that's the one I come across the most. How do we attract women into the industry as a whole, because otherwise we're just shuffling diversity from one company to another. Like the sector doesn't change. And I think this is obviously a question that the industry might want to ask themselves, but as a company, that's where you can start. So how can I talk about good use cases to groups underrepresented and get them into payments and give them a chance to teach them stuff without just always saying, no, I need 6 years of payment experience.
Yeah. And Candice, any sort of observations, personal observations and thoughts from your side?
Yes, I think, again, I'm here flying the Elevon flag. We have a very, very strong diversity, equality, inclusion culture. When I first came to Elevon 6 years ago, I was asking about the people policies, and I thought, well, this all sounds very magical and mystical, and it's probably not going to be the reality when I get there, but everything else stacked up, and I took a punt. And we have business resource groups for every type of community across our organization. And I think the one thing Elevon really does get right, and I've questioned sometimes, why wouldn't I leave Elevon unless someone came and offered me something truly magical, is because there's a real sense of belonging. Doesn't matter if you're a woman, if you're a LGBTQ plus group, whatever your interest, you belong. And I think that's a really, really strong culture we have at Elevon, and I applaud. We have a woman European president. We've just recruited another European head of revenue line. We have a very, very heavy dominance of women across the organisation, actually, and I'm not sure if it's intentional, but I think the more we have and the more we're out talking, being part of women's networks and promoting, and the more it becomes evident outwardly.
Thank you. Well, thanks for voting. So we're going to do one more. Okay, we're going to follow on because I wonder whether the next vote has some correlation to the results of our first. But sort of 17% of you saying that maybe this isn't the sector for you, the place for you. But if we could get the second poll question up, that would be great, Patricia. And then I'm just really interested to see whether this has any correlation. And what we will do is we'll open up in a little while for maybe a couple of questions from the floor if you have them. But yes, if you could maybe take a moment just to respond to this this particular point. So, Paul, I want to come to you. So, what's the problem for the industry? I know it's a tough one to answer, but we've said that we don't, as a sector, as an industry, do a great job around diversity and so on. But I mean, we've probably been at events over the last 3, 4, 5, maybe more years where this topic comes up, and it's we're just not good at doing that. We're predominantly here in Europe, white, middle-aged, Northern European men, basically, that are sort of the major category in the sector. So how do we? Not so much how do we change it, but what's the problem? What's the change in thinking that we need to see?
I think there's a certain irony in your question. You're asking English main language, balding, grey-haired, white person. Well, what do we need to do? I guess the real answer will be a collective one. But from my perspective around the industry, I've seen a lot of improvement. I've only been in the industry for 20 years, so that makes me relatively a newcomer compared to most. But certainly when I was getting involved in payments back in 2002, 2003, bald-haired, bearded, greying, pot-bellied males were a little bit more the norm. And as I look out here and as I look out the wider show, we are seeing, certainly in terms of gender diversity, things have really moved on. I think in terms of ethnic diversity, we've got a real challenge. And I think we need to be looking around and saying, well, how do we diversify in many, many other ways? I'm delighted when we've got groups that are really promoting certain certain groups that have been underrepresented, but I think we need to look much, much more widely than that. And for me, the answer is providing a much more mentoring, buddying sort of approach right across the industry. We tend to be highly, like your point, everybody being very friendly, I think that is very true. Individually, corporately, we tend to be elbows out, a little bit focused on the competitive nature of things, and setting up a collaborative community as we did in Vendorcom back in 2003, that was it felt very subversive. It felt almost naive or a bit idealistic. But we're starting to see those collaborative credentials come through in the market. And I think if we can bring some of those collaborative approaches to the people we bring in, trying to, Simon, your point of let's look at you, the team, the organization, I actually think as how we present ourselves as an industry, we could and should be working more as an industry to make ourselves more attractive and be almost incentivizing, talk to your mates down the pub or in the restaurant or at home about how exciting this industry is. Let's bring the diversity of our everyday friendships into this industry. We tend to just go along with the same cultural fit that we have within our businesses. Let's bring the diversity of society into the industry. So finding methods for that would be what I would suggest.
Oh, Louise.
Jump in. I think one of the things we need to do is we actually need to do, not just say. I was at an event last year and the opening speak was great. It was talking about diversity and inclusion and really making sure that everyone's heard. And it was immediately followed by a panel of 5 white men.
Nice.
And it was noticed by everybody at the event. It's shocking because then the sincerity is lost. And I think there are people genuinely that are sincere about making the change and being inclusive. And we just need to do, I think.
Thank you. Well, we're coming into land a little bit here in terms of our timing. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time on you and on your career plan and your aspirations and the contribution that you make today and the contribution you want to be able to make tomorrow to your team, the company you work for, the sector that you work within, and how important that is. And we are the stewards and custodians of our careers. Nobody else is going to do that for us. So to the 17%, I think it was, that don't think about this sector as one that they see a future career in, my question would be, well, what are some of the drivers for that? And it may be just that payments just isn't your drink of choice, as it were, and you want to go and do something else. But if it's something that within the sector and the industry that's not quite right, then I'd love you to come and talk to me after this, because we're very passionate about building a really vibrant, intentionally wanting to develop workforce within the payment sector, and for all of you to feel proud about yourselves and the career journey that you're on. And just as an aside, I'm going to share this little anecdote, then I'm going to come to the panel. But I've talked to a few people recently that say, like, Simon, I just need to get out of here. I want to change my job. I want to stay in payments, but this isn't the right company for me. And then they tell me their story, and I say, well, let me feed this back to you, which is, you've invested a lot of your time and effort in your role and in the company. You've built a team, or you've built a good cross-functional matrix around you. You get an okay salary. You've actually got some equity. You're recognized as a contributor in the industry. Your team like you, your leadership like you. Why do you want to move? And sometimes we can think the grass is greener on the other side. So just a little anecdote there. But I want to talk to the panel just for a few minutes before we close about career and how we intentionally think about managing our career and look at it through your personal lens. So I'm going to start with Estelle, and maybe share a little bit about your own career, just for a minute or two, about your own career, some of the challenges that you've had, but the things that you've invested in and done that have helped you progress. And then we'll go Morten and across the panel before we close.
Not easy question. I would say I would recommend to stay curious and to be willing to learn and discover, taking it as a journey. Not you don't get a job and you arrive somewhere, but it's a journey, and it's getting more and more a journey because, as we know, you can change many times in your career. You can change jobs, you can change the type of job, the type of functions you do in a company. So I'm an economist and a banker and also a yoga trainer. I train future yoga trainers. So yeah, I'm just open to opportunities and then not have my own ideas of how things should be, but I always was driven by envy and what makes me feel living or alive. So yeah, that took very unexpected ways, but at the end, it's very nice. At the end, it's not the end; it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
But so yeah, and I think the market and the business opens many possibilities.
So you can help me perfect my downward dog. Sorry, that's a picture you probably don't want. Morten.
Yes, so over the last 4 or 5 years, I spoke to roughly 2,000 people in payment. And on career path, I think everyone has a different definition of what a career might look like. And I believe, and this is the most important question on my conversations with these candidates, and I always tell my team, ask for the motivation. Like, what would be your motivation? Why are you speaking to me? And it's the ultimate indicator of, I think, if people, happiness is a big word, but if people can build a career that they're fine and content with, if there's self-reflection around what you like in your job and what you don't like, you have a very good chance to be at a place where passion and then the hand-in-hand grit might come and give you a career. So for me, the career paths I've seen over the last 4 years with people are usually very much very diverse. I've had, I think in 2,000 conversations, I had 5 people tell me they want to leave payment. So it's not necessarily so many people that don't like the industry, but the ones that are not self-reflected on what they like, why they like it, and what they don't like, that's usually when you can be stuck in a place and do things that you actually don't really want to. Takes a bit of courage as well. Go out there, speak to recruiters, because they can usually give you an idea of what's out there. Yeah.
Thanks.
If I can just add one thing to
Yes.
what you said. We are at a moment we have the chance to choose. Some decades ago, when I did my studies, take the first job you find. There only will be one. It's totally different today. So there is an opportunity also to make choices and according to what you said. It's very important.
Thanks, Estelle.
Yeah, to Estelle's point, my first thing that came to mind was to always be open to learning. I think, certainly in this industry, it's changing at a constant rate. There's always something new happening. And as it comes to my personal career, I've never had a career plan in any way, shape, or form. I've ended up okay, I think, on the whole. But I think key things that I've learned is an interview process is a two-way street. You should be very aware of what your non-negotiables are, what's important to you, what gives you job satisfaction. And again, because we have that choice, you do get to be more picky and understand your value that you bring to the organization. It's not just what they can offer you, it's what you can offer them. It's very, very key to have in mind. And also, look for a mentor. If there's someone in the industry that you admire, you're curious about, just approach them. Don't be afraid to ask a question. I remember being very, very early in the industry, sitting at a conference going, I don't understand this, but I don't want to put my hand up. And then I started putting my hand up, and then everyone goes, I'm so glad you asked that question because I was thinking the same thing. So now I just put my hand up all the time. I've got too many opinions.
Or we pick on you because we know you'll ask a really interesting question.
Yeah. So don't be afraid. I think I was talking to my dad before I made the move over to Apexx, and as I said, I've always worked for big corporates. There's lots of safety in that, moving across to kind of the fintech scale-up, startup mentality. And I was talking to my dad, and I was like, but what if it all goes wrong? And my dad just said to me, without risk, there is no rewards, just do it. So here I am.
That's great. Thank you, Louise.
Yeah, look, I got into the sector by accident. Really delighted I did. That was 21 years ago.
Never. Not that long ago.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was such a child at the time. But like everyone has said, there's diversity. It's going to continue to diverge. We're hopeless at sunsetting anything in the payments industry. So what you're familiar with will always be there. There will just be all of these other things that are added on top. I agree with the mentoring approach. What I would say is you don't just have to pick one job with one company. Now, maybe I'm in a little bit more of a luxurious position, but I'm finding working with different companies, some of it you're working with because you're getting paid, and obviously we all need to do that. But think about what other things you can do in the sector. So I'm the European evangelist for the World Wide Web Consortium for payments. I'm a mentor at the Level 39 FinTech incubator in London. And just being able to do some of these other things will give you a sense of perspective. It's nice to be on the content advisory board for events like this because you're meeting interesting people. Push your own boundaries. I would love to see some of you on a panel here next year. Maybe you've never done it before. Maybe one of the things I'll suggest is that the organizers should actually reach out to everybody that's coming to the show as an attendee and say, is there anything that you would particularly like to be on a panel to discuss? Push your own boundaries in the industry. Just do something a little bit different.
Thank you. Candice.
Gosh, I concur with all that fellow panelists have said. My big thing is give and you will get. Network has been my number one. It's just been like the heart of my career in the payments community. It's a really special community, and through meeting different people, you get to find out about the breadth of the ecosystem. I was approached for my role at Elavon whilst I was at BT because I knew people, or it just happened organically. But I think the mentoring thing is really important. I like to give back, and I think being, representing the industry at industry events is really important if you can, inspiring others that are upcoming and they're thinking, and I remember seeing Naira when I started out in 2010 and she was at PCI London, and I thought, I want to be this woman. It's amazing the impact you can have on other people, and just giving and being open-minded and exploring, I think is really important.
Yeah.
Just one really quick thing, just building on what you've said. Look after your contacts. Every single contact you make. It's one of the first things I did in 2002, 2003, partly because we have built the business off the back of that. But every single contact is going to be precious to you at some stage in your career. And being able to keep coming back to them, use LinkedIn, use every contact database that you can possibly have, enrich and develop those contacts over the years. What goes around comes around in this industry, and hopefully we will keep people around the industry for years, and you'll be able to create opportunities together with those people. They will be able to use you and so on. So keep those contacts alive. They're real people. They're not just names and numbers in an address book. Look at everyone as a real person that you can augment their role in this industry and they can augment yours.
And just one more thing.
Yeah, no problem.
And I think getting involved and like you're talking about extra things that aren't just core to your day job. And I've been talking to, again, Claire and others about how maybe we can think about how we bring in others from outside of this community, how we can collaborate and maybe form some sort of little organisation, not a non-profit thing, but just so that we can enhance and perpetuate the race, if you like.
Yes.
Actually, just one other little thing. Find an interest outside payments as well, because it can actually become a little bit all kind of encompassing, and it can you can lose some sense of perspective. So finding something vital, whether through your family or other interests. I've got the craziest pastime in that I'm into inland waterway canal restoration. Now that's just so far away from payments and fintech that when you're bricklaying or chopping trees down or clearing sludge out of the bottom of a canal lock that's been there for 200 years, it's just refreshing. So it's nice to have an interest outside as well.
There we are, from yoga to canals. That represents the diversity of our sector. So a couple of things from me. I'm going to thank our panel in a minute. We all should do, because they're wise and sage words. But just to sort of wrap this up, why did we do this? We did this because we feel at these payments conferences, we need to be spending time talking about you, talking about the people for payments, talking about talent. Because, along with, as I said at the beginning, innovation and product and strategy and go-to-market, you need the people to execute on that. I think also you are the shop window today and tomorrow for this sector to attract talent in. So please be visible. Think about, how can I develop myself? How can I be more visible to the sector and outside of the sector to attract talent in? And I couldn't agree more. And one of the things that I say every day in my role as a headhunter is you're most likely to find your next role through your network, not a recruiter. Now, it may be different at the very beginning of your career, but when you have launched and are on your journey, so massage that network. Don't have thousands of people and never speak to any of them. Make sure you engage with your network, are very active, and they see you visibly as well. So in closing, thank you for your time. Thank you for staying the course. I hope you found it interesting. If you want to come and chat with any of us, please do afterwards or through the rest of the conference. And let's give these guys a great round of applause. They've been absolutely fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Oh, did we get any results for this? Sorry. Oh, I missed that. Thank you for pointing it out. That does that have any reflection on the 17%? Yes. Actually, just while we're here, if people want to go, do. But if anybody has a question they want to ask, please do. Or we could just shout it out. Oh, did you? Oh, sorry. I'm failing totally in my job here.
Simon, repeat it in case other people can't hear it.
Sorry?
Just repeat the comment in case people...
Yeah.
No, okay. So do we have a microphone we could use? Oh, that would be really helpful, because you're making sorry, and I don't know your name, sorry. Claire, making a massively important point there.
Yeah, hi everyone. So my comment is that there is an academic snobbery that exists within our industry, and we automatically go, oh, we must get out to graduate recruitment schemes, we must link up with universities. Actually, I think there is a role for us to play in social mobility, and our for a product, for a pipeline, a talent pipeline, we need to be more diverse. So that's number one. That then will have an impact on the products and services that we are trying to deliver. So I have sat in so many workshops with people speaking about financial health and financial literacy. They are talking at it from a position, they've never been on the breadline. They've never missed a mortgage payment. They, you know, people are, in lots of parts of our society, you know, they are living on the breadline. They don't manage their money properly. So how can we, as an industry, fintech and payments, develop products and services to help these people if we don't have people that would have come through and had those experiences themselves? And then the final point is diversity is all very well and good, but inclusion is the key to all of this. So, you know, we can tick the quota, we can look at how many women we've got on boards, how many women in tech community groups we've got, how many LGBTQT plus, etc., etc. But if those people aren't given a voice, then, you know, there's literally no point to it. So.
No, wise words. Thank you for that. Yes, please do. So if anybody wants to go, please don't feel that you've got to stay embarrassed about leaving, but I'm just really interested in continuing the dialogue.
Sorry, Simon, before we move on, can I just reference that point? And I feel bad that I haven't been open about this in my career. I started my career in payments as a single parent to 2 small children under 3. And I bet everyone in the industry that knows me probably doesn't know that. So I've done a really bad job of representing where I came from. And so I guess my task from that is I will do better. Thank you.
Thanks, Louise.
I think, hi, so I'm Anne-Marie from Europay, look after partnerships. Actually, a really great point. So I moved up to Yorkshire in England about 7 years ago. And recently I pushed to our CEO that I would like to employ in the local community somebody outside of the industry, cut my headcount into 2 to bring in somebody at a junior level, because actually I was also given that opportunity. I don't have a degree. I've had people advertise roles and say, oh, you know, want a degree? And I said, well, how can I ask for them to have a degree when I don't have a degree myself? And, you know, I think what's been fantastic is she's come in with a very fresh view on, and very young, and coming with a very fresh view as to actually things we don't see because I've been ingrained in payments for 20 years. We live in an ex-mining village, so there is a lot of poor community, people that are really struggling and have gone through issues yourself. And I really wanted to give something back to the community. And our CEO backed me. And I think it needs to come from top down as well, because you need to have the support and the trust that we can make the right decisions. So absolutely on board with everything that's said there.
Thank you. That's great.
May I just...
Yes, please do, Estelle.
I think it's really, you made a, thank you, very, very good point. And this is linked also to the subject title of the panelist, people. So there are some things like that are related to behavior and to people only. We can only, and we were talking about sincerity. So when you provide diversity, it has been promoted by laws, by regulations. Some companies that just disclose, they do things about diversity, but from a people perspective, people don't see that. So it's about sincerity. It's about really how you make behavior change, and it's the same with financial literacy. I'm working on that. I'm building financial literacy programs, and it cannot be. It's on some aspect it can be through the digital channels, but most of the time, and talking about money and how people behave and their relationship with money, it's really behavioral change. So it's from people talking to people. You cannot do with a digital application. So it takes time, it takes a lot of energy, but it's like you're really changing people's life. And we do that in Africa. So we gather people in rooms like that, and you just talk to people. Okay, do you know what do you why saving is important? And people say, no, we don't save. Why? Because I don't have money. But do you know you can just save €1 a month, and it's still saving, and you can start from that and so on. So people have, it's about people and it's about behavior, so it's very,
Thank you.
And it's very important.
So one last thing before we depart, the topic of motivation. I think that's very important. So just cover that a little bit. For me, motivation is our engine room. It's the engine room of any individual. If you don't have motivation, you just... So what tends to motivate people in teams? Number of different aspects, but just touch on two of them. So one of them was the fact that, 68% said that there wasn't a focus on training and development and sort of personal investment in time by the organization or leadership in those individuals. That can be very, very demotivating. But beyond that, they want to have relationship, especially when you're thinking about it in a remote context. They want to have relationship with their team, with their leader, with the mothership headquarters. So it's really important as a leader, you find ways of spending time with those individuals. If you can't do it in person, do it via VC. Get communities together, get the team together, set little little competitions and things like that. That anything that can bring cohesion, even if people are remote and they can only get together every 4 months or 6 months, just needs to be that dialogue, that feeling of sort of belonging, that feeling of tribe is really, really important to motivate, especially when you're in a remote setting. So I'm going to stop now, but please, as you go away, and we're going to post a few things about this session. If you really enjoyed it, please promote it, because I think we need to do more around people for payments. It's a big topic. We don't spend enough time on it, and I would love to promote it more. But otherwise, can we give these guys another round of applause and enjoy the rest of the event? Thank you very much.